coming in. You all know that my family lives in Saskatoon, or at least my mom lived in Saskatoon, and my older sister lives in Saskatoon. And today's outline was provided by the new Science of Mind minister in Saskatoon. His name is Carmine Owen, and he's a very creative young man. So I'm really pleased to have his outline. And I'm not going to follow it exactly. What a surprise. So we're back to the basics, which means that we're reviewing the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind textbook. And we do that at this time of the year because many, many spiritual centers do this to remind ourselves of the basics of what we believe, of what is true for us. And that's one of the reasons that I started with the prayer wall. First of all, I should have ended with the prayer wall, but I didn't dare do that because sometimes I would go over and I don't want to be here all day long. So I wanted everyone that wanted a prayer to get a prayer, and that it's our intention that you feel comfortable enough that you will receive. The way it works. On page 37, Dr. Holmes says this: in the ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And the cartoon says, I'm not sure if it's cold or flu or I'm dying. And sometimes that is how we misuse this wonderful gift that we've been given. We use it to worry. We use it to label. We use it to judge ourselves and others. And when we do, the only thing that that can do for us, it does through us. This one principle that is almighty, everywhere present, that can move mountains and is moving mountains, that can build things from nothing, can only work through you and through me with our permission, with our invitation. When we make a decision to have a certain thing, to be a certain way, it cooperates by filling that form of what we believe is true. It isn't filling it from nothing. It's actually revealing the spiritual truth of you. The spiritual truth of you and the spiritual truth of me is that we're whole, complete, and perfect right now. But here are some questions that Carmine suggested that we ask ourselves. Here are some questions. And let me just get them in the right order. He says, are you feeling well and spending lots of time with your doctor? Does keeping an eye on your medications, keeping an eye on the list of your medications make you dizzy? Are you overwhelmed when you watch the news? Now, he's Canadian. Are you overwhelmed when you watch their news? Many people have talked to me about this in the last few weeks, being overwhelmed with the news. Do you believe in a global economy that's founded on debt? Are you living in debt, or are you living debt-free? Are you unhappy in your relationships? Are you single? Is your focus for a romantic relationship money and looks? Are you happy at your job? Are you unhappy at your job? Do you know what you want to do? Does going to work fill you with dread? If you answered yes to these negative questions, then this chapter, the way it works, is for you. It's for me. Ernest Holmes says, we take the good wherever we can find it, making it our own, insofar as the good as any individual, as so far as we understand it. The realization that good is universal and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate into his life is his to use, is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. So let's think about using this. So let's think about using the way this thing works. Let's using it for our body. So if we're intelligent about using our thinking and our feeling, we'll put our attention on what is working. And even when you have the flu or the cough or the going around sickness, focus on what is working in your body. Your hair is growing, your nails are growing, you're able to see, you're able to hear. All of those are miracles. Every single aspect of you is a miracle in motion. But so often we give our focus, our attention, our time, and our spiritual energy to what is not working. And even from that, you can learn something. So it's your body causing you pain. What is it trying to tell you? In last week's lesson, I didn't share this with you, but Sandy Smith gave a wonderful example. One of her congregants came to her for prayer, and she wanted prayer because she had chronic pain in her shoulders. And so they had an interview, as practitioners do, and she realized that the woman was feeling overburdened by the problems in her children's life, her adult children, the problems in their lives. And so her pain in her shoulders was coming from bearing the weight of the world, her world. And so instead of treating that the pain go away, she treated for the woman to have confidence in her children, for them to do well, and the pain went away. Do you follow? So even that pain can tell you something, because what's true is that that presence that created you and created me, created us perfectly to live a life of ease, to live a life of grace and of joy. A perfect pattern of well-being fills every cell, every atom, every tissue, every function, every fiber of our being. So in the physical body, if you're struggling with something chronic, see a practitioner. Get help for it. Now, on to relationships. If you're having problems in your relationships, when you hold, he has this theory, and it may be true. I haven't been that successful in relationships, so let me think about this. But what he says is that you never have problems in your relationship because of what you do say. Trouble in your relationships comes from what you don't say, from withholding your truth. Okay, anybody agreeing with Carmine? Yeah, okay. Anybody agreeing with Carmine? 2 hands up from some places. That it's what you withhold because you're causing separation. I was reading somewhere over the weekend that when our natural way of being with people we love is to love them so easily and so well that our voices are kind and soft. And when they get loud, and I thought this was brilliant. When your voices get loud, when you're with someone you love and your voice gets loud because you're trying to prove a point, really it's because what happens is the heart feels so far away from the other heart. So the loud voice is in an attempt to reach out to that other heart who might be right beside you. But when you close the heart, so the question always is, would you rather be right or would you rather be healed in love? So in relationships, to be healed in love, to speak your truth, to ask for what you want, to tell the truth. in creativity, to be willing to know that you cannot steal anyone else's good, that there's plenty of good for every single one of us. And what you want to do serves the whole world. It blesses the world. By you being a blessing, by being true to you, what you have to offer. Some of you know, the practitioners know, several weeks ago, I quietly ordained Maddie and Jeff Lang in their home in La Jolla. I didn't do it by myself. Centers for Spiritual Living gave permission, sent the stoles and the certificates. It was unusual to do it that way, but it was because Jeff is quite ill. And so on the human level, spiritually, he's dynamite. And that's what I wanted to talk about. There he was in hospice care. So so that simply means that he's being treated with kindness and no extreme measures. And he's teaching his caregivers, his nurses, and his doctors to use principle. He's teaching them to use principle. He's teaching them to see him as whole, as healthy, not to see him as a disease or as someone who is dying, but to see him as someone who is living. And I'm telling you, that impressed me so much. I heard that way back in July. And that's when I placed a call to Centers for Spiritual Living and said, we need to re-examine how we do this. Because normally the process is when people qualify for ordination, then there's a whole process of having an interview and a panel and passing the panel and all of those things. They said, you know what? He's proven it. It's proven. So yes, we can say congratulations to both Reverend Jenny and Reverend Maddie. And I told them, you're going to experience a change because ordination does that. There's going to be something within you that perceives things differently. And Maddie immediately, on the next day, she was telling me how she was perceiving things differently. And Jeff was emailing me that very day. Now, this is a man that probably should never be at the computer these days, got up from his bed to the computer to write down some inspiration that he wanted to share. That's the nature of what it does. It wants to give of itself, which is love. It wants to be that thing itself. And it wants to do so in joy, wholeness, prosperity. So what it does is it moves through us. And what makes it move? What makes it move? There's a little hint here in our, okay. Here's one of the brilliant pieces I didn't want to leave out. There is no switch for darkness. We go to turn on the light. Right? There's no switch for darkness. We can't turn on the darkness. Why would we want to? But oftentimes we go there in our mentality. Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where there were only walls. So there's the hint. The hint is what brings you joy? What fills you with so much joy that you know that's yours to do? And if there's a block, forgiveness is how you save yourself from the past. Carmine began the lesson with something he said. He only has 2 rules. The first rule, rule number 1, to love everybody the same. Rule number 2, to forgive yourself when you forget rule number 1. Isn't that great? Yeah, to love everybody the same. So, look at your life. If you can look at it objectively, you'll see there's so much good in your life right now. Even if you were the first one up to the prayer wall because you really wanted something different, even if there's room for more good, there's still good in your life. So the way it works through you. It is done unto you as you believe. My blog this week, I started with a quote from Dr. Joseph Murphy, and it said, do you believe, or do you pretend to believe? Do you pretend to believe? If you really knew, if you really believed that every thought, passionately spoken thought or felt, was creating a result, that's belief. If you pretend to believe it, then there may be some blocks to your good. The only one that can unblock them is sitting in your chair. And no, it's not the other person that's sitting there with you. It's you. It's you. So this week, what a great week to remember the power that you have within yourself. And to remember that your whole life is this masterpiece that you've created. And be so grateful for all of the good that you're creating. So I have a poem that I want to share with you to close. Got everything out of order here. This is a David Whyte poem. And he says this, the opening of eyes. That day I saw beneath dark clouds and passing light over the water, and I heard the voice of the world speak out. I knew then, as I had before, life is no passing memory of what has been, nor the remaining pages of a great book waiting to be read. It is the opening of eyes long closed. It is the vision of far-off things, seen for the silence they hold. It is the heart, after years of secret conversing, speaking out loud in the clear air. It is Moses in the desert, fallen to his knees before the lit bush. It is the man throwing away his shoes as if to enter heaven, and finding himself astonished, opened at last, fallen in love with solid ground. That's the way it works. It works through you, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And please welcome back the quartet.